All right. Hi. Hello, Ben and Emily here. I told you on Sunday in worship that I wanted to continue talking about our discussion that I brought up in the worship service about men and women and different roles. We're going through this sermon series called Who Told You That, and different things that maybe you heard about Christianity, heard about the church, and one thing that people might hear about is that the church is anti-woman. The church is against women. And since I'm not a woman, I thought we could talk to a woman, my wife, beautiful wife, and discuss some of these things and hear your perspective. So sure. I conned you into it. I made you coffee.
Yep.
And you said, okay then.
Okay, fine.
So one of the things that brought up in the service was just the reality that we're in this safer at home situation right now because of the quarantine, and that some people are not safer at home. Mm-hmm. And so then I talked about how this brings out this reality that for some women and children, especially women, there's this gender inequality. There are unequal rights, unequal value, and then unequal protection. They don't feel safe at home. And so I brought out this idea that Christianity promotes equality right from the first page. Mm-hmm. That in Genesis 1:27 it says, God created man in his image, mankind, humans in his image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. And so right away the Bible talks about unity, equality, equal value, equal rights, and then should be equal protection. In Genesis 9 it talks about you don't lay a hand on one of God's image bearers. So that made me want to ask you, do you think that there is inequality, especially in society? Do you think we're living up to that value? And then especially in the church, do you think there is inequality?
Yes. I think it depends on where you are, and I think it varies from church to church.
Okay.
That's just going to be the way it is. I think I've been pretty fortunate that a lot of of all the churches we've been at, mm-hmm. I haven't ever really felt it overly severely. I think the most frustrating time for me was the year I was teaching preschool, and they were voting as to whether or not to keep the preschool open. And I was teaching, it was just a 1-year thing, mm-hmm. but I was there, I was trying to explain to them everything that I was doing and mm-hmm. telling them all the great stuff that the preschool was doing and the positive effect that it was happening, or that was having. And then when it came time to make the decision as to mm-hmm. whether or not to keep the preschool open, then I had to sit down and be quiet. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a man can ever really understand how frustrating that is.
Yeah.
It leads me to think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and how he was crying out to God and begging him to please change the situation, and he didn't. Mm-hmm. And Jesus had to just sit back and trust. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that is kind of what we're being called to do, to mm-hmm. trust the people that have the authority, and trust that even though men are the ones making the decision, God is ultimately in control, and he's asking us to trust him, mm-hmm. to trust him with the decisions, and that, Jesus had to do that too.
But that could be handled better too.
Sure,
where
of course.
Continue to hear your decision and value.
And they did. I felt listened to, and I felt heard, and I felt like I had plenty of an opportunity to speak. But then when it comes down to the actual decision being made, then I have to sit on the sidelines, and how hard that is.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, Jesus, he lived through that too, so he understands how that feels.
Okay.
Is how I see it.
So then the next, there's a lot we could talk about that, about how decisions get made or whatever, and that maybe we'll get to that in a little bit. And I think that's something that we have to continue to wrestle with, and I don't think we've always done a good job of at least wrestling with it, even talking about it openly.
Yeah.
And so
I think, but like I said, I think that Jesus played that role when he was a human on earth. He played the role of, you don't always get to understand why things are going on, but you have to put your complete trust in the Father.
Yeah.
And I think that that can be applied here too.
Yeah. I mean, I know, and too, and there's been congregations that I've been a part of too, where you're just like, even as a pastor, I don't get the decision,
right?
You know, and you know, you let the leaders decide, and I'm gonna let them decide what the direction we should take, and then I'll try to live that out. So okay, then the next thing we talked about was, all right, if men and women are equal, and you know, we talked about that whole verse about human rights, you know. If humans are created in God's image, that means men and women, black and white, young or old, all people have value. From the cradle to the tomb, all people have value, no matter who you are, no matter what your race or gender. But then it still does say God created a man in God's image, and he created a woman in God's image. What do you think that means to you, to women, that women are created in the image of God? How do you understand that? How could, you know, we better appreciate that verse, that there's something about being a woman that shows us God?
I think what it reminds me of is the book Captivating. That's what it reminds me of. And how they talk in there about how women do something that men can't, which is bring life. And I think in general, that statement can mean, obviously, literally having children. But I don't think that that's all it means.
Okay.
Because there are so many women out there who, for whatever reason, God has not allowed them to do that, and he would never intend for that to mean that they are somehow less of a woman. And so I think for women, how they, one area that they can bear God's image is by bringing life in all ways. Sometimes it means having kids. Sometimes it means making a blanket. If you are a person that crochets and gives gifts to someone, if you buy flowers and give gifts to a person, if you are a person who loves to bake and you give your baked goods to someone, if you're someone who God has blessed with the ability to sing and have talent, he wants you to use that. That is life-bringing.
Okay.
All of those gifts and talents that women have, when you use them in a way that is sharing, all of that is life-giving and life-bringing.
Very cool. And
I think that's the joy of the world, is when women love each other and love all humanity, you know, men also included in that, as friends or whatever, partners. And I think that's the biggest thing, is life-giving does not mean just this one tiny little aspect of physically having a child.
Do you want to share your other favorite part about that book?
My other favorite part about Captivating is how they talk about how, and again, it's not God's word, so you can pick and choose the verses that you like, the sections that you like, and throw out the ones you don't. But this one was my favorite. It said that everything God was making was always getting better and better and better and better and better and improving. And he made land animals, and then he made man, and then he made women, which means they are the actual best thing on the face of the planet.
That's funny.
I'm just saying, we've always interpreted that verse as God made man. Oh, and then he kind of decided to throw women in at the end. And that's such a lie. That's not how it was intended to be at all. It was God made man, and he saw that the world was still incomplete. And so he made women to finally raise it up a notch. There you go. Raise it up a notch.
I like that.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big point for me, is that, you know, sometimes you only see God portrayed in, like, you know, and there's a whatever male pronouns and things, you know, the Father, the Son, and I think those are good, necessary, you know, that's how the Bible portrays it. But the Bible also says, God is like a mother and that loves his children, and then also these qualities that there's something about a woman that reflects the image of God. And I just think that's really important to emphasize that you were saying. So
yeah, I don't know a lot of men that buy flowers for each other or crochet blankets for each other, or
right.
Call each other up and say, hey, let's go for a walk, or buy each other Starbucks gift cards, or
right.
Not that they don't, but that's just that love. That's what God is calling, and that's what women in general do. So
give life.
They give life. They don't even think about it. They don't think twice about it. It just comes naturally from them to want to do something to give. And that, I think, is how one big way that women reflect the image of God is that they just care.
Okay.
So
very cool. Then as I'm thinking about, all right, if women don't feel, some women don't feel right now safer at home, or safer at work, or safer in the community, or safer at church, but women always felt safe around Jesus. And that's what God is calling men to, our world to, especially the church to, and then make that part of the greater culture, that women not only feel safe, but women felt empowered. I think about the woman who poured perfume all over Jesus, and everybody was so shocked that she would be so extravagant and just upfront with Jesus, and yet she was pouring her life out, and Jesus was that kind of person that you felt safe around, that you could just pour your life out to, and so that's what I was wondering. And I've seen the other side, where domestic situations where husbands or men are controlling, are not safe, are abusive physically, emotionally, all the different ways you could be abusive. And I'm just scared for those men to meet God, because they will have to answer for that. And then I pray for the women to find the protection and the value and the opportunity that they deserve. But how can we do like the total opposite of that kind of situation, where you walk into a room and maybe it's, there's men in that room, and women feel safe in that room, safe in church, safe in a workplace, safe in as safe as you would feel around Jesus. What do you think is what God is calling the church to, the men to, so that women feel safe and thrive?
Well, I think it's two things. The first thing, again, I'm going to go back to this book, Captivating, again, and they talk about how come women what is the reason behind this massive attack on women that has been happening for thousands of years?
Yeah.
Where does that all come from? And even though we don't have a specific answer, again, in this book, Captivating, they try to answer that by saying that Satan was the most beautiful angel that ever existed. He was stunningly gorgeous. And when he fell, that was stripped away from him. And so he has now taken it upon himself to destroy beauty, and he hates life. Well, those are the two most important things that women bring into this world, beauty and life. And so Satan has made it his goal to attack women harder and more fierce than men. And he uses men as his tool to attack women. And so I think the first thing you have to understand is who the true enemy is. We're not necessarily fighting against men. We are fighting against Satan, who is truly trying to attack women and get them to be belittled, because he is so grossly jealous of women. And that, I think, is important. You have to understand who you're really fighting against. You are fighting Satan when men do this to women. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is women God designed us so differently, as we've learned from the Mark Gungor videos. Our brains work so differently, and women just need to be allowed the space to process differently. They need to be heard and listened to in a respectful manner.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you have to only take their ideas or that somehow you have to lift women above men. That's not equality either. But to just allow them the space to share their ideas and treat them with dignity and respect. And, listening is a big part of it. And then, unfortunately, the other side of it is watch your eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, men it's not subtle.
Yeah.
When their eyes drift, women know it.
Mm-hmm.
They pick up on it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And in that second, you immediately don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And you have lost any level of trust
Mm-hmm.
that you had with that man. If their eyes wander even for a second, you
Mm-hmm.
immediately, that's it. It's like, you're done. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel safe around you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be around you. I'm going to have a hard time working with you or trusting you forever
Mm-hmm.
because of that 1 second. And it's not subtle.
Yeah.
It's not subtle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Women pick up on it way faster than men think they do because it's not subtle.
Yeah.
So you have to do those three things. I think you have to understand you're really fighting Satan. You have to listen to them and not just because they process things differently and they get to things in a different way. It doesn't mean it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And check your eye contact. Get it together.
That's really good. That's really good. And yeah, it just so much has been put forward that women are objects, right? On every TV show, every advertisement, just it's used to reduce women to that.
And
there's something to look at. Yeah.
I firmly believe that is all Satan.
Yeah.
I think he has worked incredibly hard to make women, to put them down out of his overwhelming jealousy of how beautiful they are.
Mm-hmm.
They bring beauty and they bring life, and he hates it.
Mm-hmm.
So he has worked harder
Mm-hmm.
to put women down than anything else.
So, and then, what would it look like for a church or a business or a community to be a place where women are thriving and feel like empowered and what would that look? I mean, I think one thing you said, do you want to talk a little bit more about, the feminist movement hasn't necessarily answered this problem either.
No, they've tried, but they still are saying, again, and this is in general, just a general idea, that true feminism means you have to work. And to me, true feminism should be encouraging and loving and respecting women to make whatever choice they want.
Mm-hmm.
Feminism should be about
Mm-hmm.
empowering women to choose
Mm-hmm.
whatever career path they want.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to work full-time, great, work full-time. We need women in the workplace.
Yeah.
If you want to stay home full-time and homeschool and raise your babies, great. We need those people too.
Yeah.
And
you have that story of that woman who didn't feel like she could make that choice, right? You had a friend or something.
She was a woman I worked with. She really wanted to stay home with her 2-year-old, and she said, but I can't because then I'm not being a good example for her. And I just said, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. I said, if you want to work. But if you want to stay home. You should have that freedom.
Yeah.
And I don't see how the extreme feminism movement towards making women feel like they can't choose to stay home. I don't see how that's empowering to women. I still see that as oppressive. I still see it as oppressive.
It's like women have to take the worst characteristics of men
and become it.
And become the man that you didn't like in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't, and the other thing I don't like about it is that it's, again, in its extreme, feminism, I don't think always, the idea of it out there today doesn't always see equality with men as something as a goal to be working towards, but it actually sees dominating men as a goal. And that's just so unhealthy also. That's not equality. We have a son. I don't want him to treat women badly, but I also do not want women to treat him like he's somehow less of a human out of some sense of revenge for the last thousands of years. That's not his fault.
Yeah.
And so degrading men and trying to put men down it's just as ridiculous. It's not equal. So just as I don't want our daughters to be made to feel that way, I don't want our son to be made to feel that way.
Sounds a lot like the first page, like by men and women were created in the image of God. So let's live that out, not by erasing those differences, but by enjoying them, exploring them, holding them up, magnifying the good parts of what they bring to the table. And very good. Well, anything else that you want to say that we didn't cover on this whole issue of, is the Bible against women? What can we do about it? Or
no, I think it was a really important point that you made, that women always felt safer around Jesus, and that's how it was supposed to be. He never treated a woman badly. He never looked down on women. He never saw them as less. He always saw them as valuable and important and equal. And that's really all we want.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for doing this. We should do it again. If you want her to join me on the Bible studies more often, let me know. All right. God bless you. Have a great day.